Gunhild's Granddaughter. Written by Myrtle Siebert. Narrated by Sia Penner.
For my children, Norma, Eric, and Linda Siebert. 1. Arrivals. In May of 1893, a 21-year-old Norwegian, Einar Einarsson Forberg, disembarked from the ship Venetia in New York Harbor and was processed by immigration officials at Ellis Island. He and his 23-year-old traveling partner, Ola Johnson, whose family owned an adjacent farm in Bø, Telemark, were bound for Michigan. I learned this when I found both names in the ship's passenger records after I had found the farms on a map of Norway. Einar was the man I knew all my life as Andy Forberg, my grandfather. Upon leaving the ship, he had done as many of his countrymen had done, adopted a permanent family name by using the name of the family farm, Forberg, which means before or in front of the rock or cliff. I have seen both the farm and the rock, and they are aptly named. In 1898, with excitement running high about news of the Klondike gold rush, Andy and Ulla left the forests of Michigan where they had been working and set out for Vancouver, Canada. Arriving at the coast, they learned that there was a new restriction placed on gold seekers. Anyone going to the gold fields was required to have enough money for grubstake and gear, approximately $500. As partners, Andy and Ulla had saved only enough funds for one of them to go. Their solution was to flip a coin. Andy lost. Had he won, I might have been born in the United States with a completely different story to tell. After his time in the gold fields, Ulla settled in Wrangell, Alaska. When I traveled there to do research, I learned he had established a hardware store that, until it closed, had been well known by my friends living in the area. Details of this story were written in my book, From Fjord to Floathouse, One Family's Journey from the Farmlands of Norway to the Coast of British Columbia. Having lost the flip of a coin, Andy remained behind and set out to carve a livelihood from the remote forests of British Columbia. I am his granddaughter, and this is my story. I arrived on the Port Neville scene early in August of 1938, a babe in arms on board MV Chalosen. It was the same ship my parents had boarded in Jackson Bay for their honeymoon the year before. I can imagine the reception we had at the Port Neville dock. Postmistress Karen Hansen, who had no children of her own, was there to welcome a new soul to the Port Neville community with her mother, surrounded by children in a range of ages who would all need to look. There, a new baby, clothed in tenderly knitted, matching jacket, charming hat tied under the chin, and booties, wrapped in a crocheted shawl, I have it carefully folded away, with a corner of it tossed over Mum's shoulder. My mother, Hazel May Fearing Forberg, wore a smart suit, heeled pumps, and fashionable cloche hat over freshly permed short hair. I have the photograph. The boat trip always took 2 days, with stops at each port to deliver supplies and pick up and deliver residents' mail. Think how difficult it was to manage a newborn alone, take meals in the formal dining room with mostly men and only a few women, all returning to camp after doctor or dentist visits, or, in the case of some, recovering from a booze bender. Imagine how badly she just wanted to get home by the time she arrived at the dock. But wait, Hazel and her husband Buster would also want to take home the mail that Karen had begun to sort. So a welcome cup of tea in the Hansen home was offered. Given the dependability of stops by the Union steamship boat, an expectant mother needed to plan her exodus to Vancouver in good time for delivery of the baby. For a first baby, she might allow more than a month before the due date, but in any case, she allowed at least a month. My uncle Ingolf, Dad's younger brother, was born in February of a particularly cold winter when Lochborough Inlet, where the senior Forbergs were living, had frozen over. Fortunately, his mother, my grandmother Gunhild, had the good sense to accept an invitation to bring her other 2 children and spend Christmas in Jackson Bay.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?